Okay, Tony back here, Fire Dude, and this will be my Big Llama tech tip video number 6. And what we're going to deal with in this video is preventive and post-flight maintenance of the helicopter. Anything mechanical, especially RC, back in my RC car days, what have you. Anything needs to be maintained, just like your normal car, pickup, or what have you. So I'm going to go over a few things with the Big Llama here, and it's been very successful for me, and kept my helicopters all fine and good condition. And this is my Big Llama cam chip number 2 here. And what I'm going to go over here first is your post-flight maintenance. And generally what I do, you know, with my CP helicopter 450 after every flight, I would go over from head to tail, and I mean thoroughly. But with the Big Llama, what I do after each flight, I'm going to hit this first. After each flight, I make sure these little screws are tight in the top of the extended inner shaft head. You back those out and lose them, you're going to be in trouble. I don't use Loctite on those, because once they're in there, they're easily stripped. The heads are easily stripped out, and they're a bear to get out. So I just make sure after each flight that they're tight and they're ready to go for the next time. So basically, what I use Tri-Flow. It's a good oil. I've used it since the early 90s. There's other good oils out there as well. But the thing about Tri-Flow is it does have the Teflon in it as well. So it works really good, and it's never failed me yet. I keep a big bottle on hand, but what I use is the needle applicator. And the little tip comes off. It works real well. This top screws off, and you can use the big bottle here to refill it when it becomes low. So what I do is use that, and then of course it has the Teflon in there, so you want to shake it real good before use to make sure all the Teflon and the oil gets mixed together. But it's good stuff. It's never let me down. So what I do after a flight and I come in, I make sure my fly bar straight if I had any accidental tip overs or anything, but I always check it anyway. And the things you want to look at lubing after each, I say 7 to 10 battery packs or flights. You know, it's more up to you. I wouldn't go any more often than that, because you'd be over lubricating things and you wind up with a mess. But the first thing I do is put a drop of oil, a small drop. It doesn't take much at all, but a small drop right here in the purple bearing where the inner shaft goes into the outer shaft. Then I'll also come down and put a very small drop of oil on the bushing of the swash plate. It takes a very small drop. Don't get carried away with the oil, because it doesn't take much, especially with the Teflon in there. And so those are your 2 places right there you want to worry about, there and there. Then also what I do is you can turn the helicopter over, and you can get to your gears, your motor pinions rather. And what you want to do with those is right here. These are bushings, they're not bearings, of course. What you want to do is put a small drop of oil on that bushing right there. A very small drop. And wipe up any excess with a Q-tip or what have you. And again, this is every 7 to 10 battery packs or flights. And then, very occasionally, not very often at all, I put a very tiny drop on the top bushing. And the reason you don't want very much up in there is you don't want any oil to work down in and get into the brushes and stuff. And when I say a tiny drop, I mean tiny. But down here, when you lubricate, you turn the helicopter over and you lubricate the 2 bushings here. Turn your blades both up and lower a couple of times to turn the helicopter back right side up. That way it'll allow any oil that's in there to settle and not go into the motor. You don't want to be spinning the blades with it upside down. Helicopter never flies inverted anyway. And that keeps those, you know, this thing just smooths. It just turns so smooth. And that's the way I want my motors to do. So those are your basic lube points. You know, and you want to make sure that, as in anything, to keep things lubed, Another thing you want to check is your canopy mount screws. You want to make sure all 4 of them, both sides are screwed all the way in. If they come loose or back out, you lose one, you're going to get a tremendous amount of canopy vibration, and then you'll be chasing another screw down to put them in. The screws I use there actually look like they have a washer behind them. They're a flange. They come in your hardware kit for the big Lamas. I don't like the stock screws. I like these. They hold better, and they have that flange built into the screw. It's almost like a washer, and you can get them in 2 different lengths, so they work really good. The other thing I do quite often, you take my ball link pliers and I'll pop off these top links right here on the lower head, because what happens is there's right behind this on each side is that small little silver screw that screws into your inner shaft and holds its head in place. If those screws back out, what's going to happen is this whole head assembly is going to slide around the shaft, and what's going to happen is your helicopter is going to sit on the ground. It's going to spin counterclockwise like a mad dog, and you're going to be scratching your head figuring out, okay, what the heck's wrong? And it just happened to me the other day, because I had the CNC metal lower head on there. I didn't like it for a couple of reasons, so I put the stock one back on and I sat it down to fly it, and no lift. It would just sit there and spin in circles clockwise, and right off I knew. What happened is I missed the holes and tightened the screws down around the shaft. So an easy way to check that is you get a very good tight grip on that and try to move, tight grip, and try to move your lower head. Now see, mine's moving a little bit, so maybe it needs to be tightened. They may need to be tightened down, because you don't want that head to move. So see, this is a good check I'm making here. So I'm going to tighten those down here when we're done with the video. I can sometimes use just a tiny bit of Loctite on those threads, very tiny bit, and snug them down. But it's obvious I've got probably 3 flights in on this, and that's loose, and that's not good. So see, I didn't even know that until we checked in this video. That's why we do these post-flight checks. So that's another thing you want to check. The lower head screws got to be tight. You also, while you're down, you want to check your skid mount screws, make sure they're tight. Because vibration over time can loosen anything, especially in the bigger CP, collective pitch helicopters. And also check your blade grips. Make sure that the blades are free to move when the rotors spin up. And take note that your ball links only go on one way on these. On one side, the ball link is larger than the other, and that's the side that goes on. And if you look on the larger opening on the ball link, it has a little ring around it. That's the side that goes on the ball link. If you force it on the other way, it'll go on, but you're going to wear out your ball link real fast, and you're going to have some major problems. What some people do with the bearings, now I mentioned lubing these bearings, but now there's also down in here, you can see, well, you can't really see it real good, but where the inner shaft or the outer shaft comes out, there's your collar set that sits right there. You can, with the needle applicator, turn the helicopter up, reach down in there and put a drop of oil right between the collar set and the main frame here. And over time, that will work down into the bottom main bearing in the frame, and it seems to get lubricated plenty that way. Now, your gears, the only gear that has a bearing is your upper gear, which is your outer shaft gear. And anytime you change out gears, just go ahead and lube it. But it seems to get enough lube from the oil flowing down through the main bearings to keep it lubed. I've never had a problem. But anyway, putting that one drop, besides what I described, between the collar set and the main frame there, it'll get in the top main bearing and work its way down into the lower main bearing. So obviously this is a good thing I checked this, because I have a loose upper head here again. I've got a tight grip on that. That should not be turning, so my screws are backed out. So I'm going to pop the ball links off and tighten those down. I check that every couple flights, so you want to make sure you do that. And make sure, sometimes it's very rare, but check your blade grips and make sure the Allens in here are really tight and haven't backed out. It very seldom happens, and that's both top and bottom, but you just want to check those so periodically. Now on the bearings, what some people do, and I used to do with the cars, is I take some brake fluid and put, small amount of brake fluid in here, take my old bearings and put them in there, and let them soak for several hours, and take them out and blow them out with compressed air, and blot them with a good clean rag, and let them dry out in the sun or in dry air overnight. And then I'd have another little small container with some tri-flow oil, and I put them in there and let them soak for several hours. When they're done, again, take them out, blot them, and get all the excess oil off. And then put them inside a little Ziploc bag where I have these nylon washers, and let them sit. So next time you do a major teardown, all you do is replace all the bearings with the new ones. It works real good on my RC cars when I was racing, and it was very successful. I've never had a bearing go yet on in a year and a half flying the big Lama, so that's a big plus. The preventive maintenance and post-flight maintenance is a big trick in keeping these things flying and things not breaking. Also on the motors, the guy sent me his big Lama to fix because it just wasn't flying right. Well, I noticed right off the bat his rear motor was really hot. After I flew it the first time, I checked the motor. It was really hot. And I'm in a cool climate in the 60s. I said, there's something wrong here. I took his motor and I spun it. And if you spin that pinion, then you feel a lot of harsh resistance. The motor shot, get rid of it. It should spin nice and free, just like this. Mine just spin just really easy. Now, people talk bad about the stock motors. There is a 370 motor out there. You can get this ball bearing off of eBay. Excellent motor, gives it a little more horsepower per se, RPM. And I may try a set yet, but to be honest, in a year and a half flying, I've only replaced one set of stock motors. It's because I take care of them, and I don't heat them up to the point where they degrade and things like that. So, but I'm going to try a set of the ball bearing motors. Of course, I had the brushless motors in my brushless setup, and they work fine. So, and then when you do a tear down and take your canopy off or changing gears and stuff, always recheck your gear mesh, because and check your motor mount screws, front and rear. You can get to them in the back here, and with my cam mount on there, I almost have to remove that to get to the front motor mount screws. But you want to make sure those are tight, because once those back out, your gear mesh is gonna be all out of whack. You're gonna chew your gears up. Not so much your pinion, but your other gears, like your extreme gears and what have you. So, when you tear down, that's when you can hit the other parts that need lubing that you can't reach to under normal flight, post-flight conditions. But it's real important that you check everything, and I go over and I check everything. I'll move things around a little bit, and like we caught here, my loose upper head. So, pretty basic stuff. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of work, a lot of time, and it can save you a lot of grief in taking care of your equipment. Again, these screws up here, you want to make sure they're tight in the cap, because if they ever come out, you're gonna lose the helicopter. It's gonna go down. Same thing with this. It's gonna sit on the ground and spin counterclockwise. And if you're in flight and these screws happen to back out, your helicopter is going to drop, and when it does, it's going to be spinning like a mad dog counterclockwise. So after each flight or two, check those screws. Just take a second, take your ball link plier, pop off the ball link, take your little Phillips screwdriver and make sure those are nice and tight in there, and you'll be ready to go. Again, almost 7 to 10 battery packs. I usually do it about 7 for the minor oiling that I talk about. Now, if you start to notice oil getting slung out, getting dropped oil on your canopy from the swash plate, or if you look underneath and see you're getting a lot of oil on your gears, you're putting too much oil in. That's why I say it only takes a small drop. I mean, a small drop will go 1,000,000 miles with these things and these bearings. So you don't want to overdo it. I don't use Loctite on too much stuff, because if you use Loctite up here, you'll never get them things out, and oh, they're a booger to get out, and it's just a nightmare. So it's best just to check them after each flight, make sure they're tight, and don't wait for something to happen. That's why we call it preventive maintenance. In the fire department, people always wondered how a 25-year-old fire truck looked and ran brand new. That's because we did preventive maintenance. And after 25 years, the truck still looked brand new. They ran like brand new. And we had a strict regime we followed, pretty much kind of like what I'm describing here with the big Lama. Any of your RC helicopters, you've got to maintain them. They're not going to maintain themselves. So those are some of the things you want to check. Look over my list here to see if I've missed anything. Also, every so often you want to check your blade tracking, because if you have a minor tip over a couple times when you're landing or taking off due to wind or something like that, that can throw your blade tracking off, because the blades get a little bit fatigued or something. And again, you adjust your blade tracking by popping this link off here and turning it on full complete turn, one half, so a full complete turn in either direction to get your blades tracking straight back on again. So, you know, every couple of flights, you know, bring it up to a hover in front of you and check your blade tracking. Make sure it's on. If not, pop your link off, get the blade tracking back on. Yeah, it may get to a point where you can't do that anymore, and that tells you that the blades have become fatigued. And they don't have to be visibly fatigued. After they take a beating of a few tip overs and tumbles and some crashes with no obvious damage, these are very thin blades. Even the stock ones, they become fatigued, and it's time to replace them. And they're cheap enough, and especially if you're running a cam, because with the blades off track, you can have a lot of vibration, and it's going to affect your cam. So, you know, that's pretty much it on the post-flight and preventive maintenance. Again, you just go over everything real well, make sure everything's tight and lubed, and hit the fine points that I described there, and you should be in good shape. And again, the motors, you don't want to over oil these. You don't want more oil getting inside there. But again, if you suspect a bad motor for whatever reason, you can pump it out and again, like I said, spin that pinion. And if you feel resistance and it's hard to turn, or it turns part way and then it kind of grabs the motor shunt, go ahead and replace it. That's what I did on the one fellows that I worked on. He had the rear motor just got so hot. I checked it, had drag. I said, that's it, toss the motor, and I put in a new motor for him, and his helicopter was fine. So that's it for tip 6 on preventive and post-flight maintenance. Just check everything, make sure all your screws are tight, and do the minor lubing, and check your lower head, which I found I'm going to have to correct now as soon as I end the video. Yeah, and that's about it. Any questions, just post it in the forum or on our Facebook page or in the video itself, and we'll get back to you, myself or Spooner. And that concludes Tech Tip video number 6, and hey, thanks for watching.